Jordan versus Drexler. The two most exciting guards to watch in the entire league were matched up in a 7-game series and a battle for the NBA championship. These two teams are no stranger to the stage, with both teams recently playing in both the 1990 and the 1991 NBA Finals. Chicago had a much more challenging road to the finals this year, with the team actually being pushed to 7 games by a hungry Knicks squad. Despite the close call, the Bulls would take care of their business, being viewed by the majority of basketball fans at the time as a favorite to win this series. That, however, was just the majority. There were a portion of fans that genuinely thought that Clyde was on Jordan's level. Even Clyde thought that he was just as good, if not better, than Jordan. To be honest, it doesn't really surprise me why Drexler would have this mindset coming into the series. He just led his team to the NBA Finals 2 years prior, and also, Jordan wasn't a 6-0 mythical figure yet. He only got 1 title in '91 so far. Portland's road to the finals was a little less stressful than the Bulls, with their toughest series being just a 6-game series against the Jazz, where they would take care of business in their place, avoiding a possible Game 7. These are the two strongest teams for both conferences, ready to go to battle for the NBA crown. Let's go ahead and get into the rest of the video. If you enjoy it, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure to follow all of my socials. Those will be in the description. But other than that, this is what happened in the 1992 NBA Finals. To begin the series, Portland would hit on its first 7 field goal attempts. At the beginning of the game, Portland's game plan seemed to entail them being content with Jordan shooting threes. Jordan was patient to begin the game, looking mainly to be a facilitator most possessions. The Bulls would start the game slow, shooting 2 for 11 from the field. After falling behind 17-9, Jordan would get going, hitting his first 3-pointer, then coming back down, converting on an and one. Terry Porter, who had been playing outstanding basketball throughout the playoffs, started the game on fire, shooting 5 for 5 from the field. Despite the hot start from Porter, Jordan wouldn't let the Bulls be behind too long. He would end up finding his shot, finishing the first quarter shooting a blazing 7 of 12 from the field with 18 points, along with shooting 3 for 5 from 3-point range. Compare that to Clyde, who by the middle of the second quarter was only shooting 3 for 6 from the field with 2 fouls. It was clear who was winning the matchup so far. Along with Jordan so far dominating the head-to-head battle, the Bulls would hold a slim 33-30 lead heading into the second quarter. Chicago would maintain the lead throughout the quarter, and by the middle of the second, the score would be 45-44. Jordan would immediately enter the game and hit on his famous fadeaway turnaround from the post. Even after Jordan already hit 3 3-point shots, Portland still feared the threat of Jordan getting into the paint. By this time in the game, it was absolutely clear that Jordan was accepting the challenge against Clyde. We saw on episode 5 of the Last Dance documentary that Jordan would talk about how he took the comparison between him and Clyde personal.
Clyde was a threat. I'm not saying he wasn't a threat, but me being compared to him, I took offense to that.
With Clyde picking up his 2 quick fouls, it prevented him from being as aggressive as he wanted to be and matched the intensity Jordan was playing with. Not to make any excuses for Clyde, he clearly wasn't on Jordan's level, not even close, but we will get more into that later on in the video. The Bulls would begin to build separation towards the end of the second quarter. Portland, who had kept the game close all the way up to this point, seemed to lose their composure during the Bulls' run at the end of the second. During this run, y'all know what happens. Jordan by halftime would break 2 records. The first being the number of threes hit in a half in the finals game, and the second being the most points scored in a half, with the previous record being 33 by Elgin Baylor. Jordan would drop 35 while shooting 14 of 21 from the field, along with shooting 6 from 9 from three-point range. Despite the onslaught from Jordan and the Bulls, the lead was only 15 at the half, and the game was not necessarily out of reach yet. What killed the Blazers was the amount of points the Bulls were scoring off of turnovers. The Bulls capitalized on 27 points off of turnovers before the third quarter even started. Those turnovers were the main reason why the Bulls have been on a 29-8 run since the game was just 47-45. But like I said, it was just one half. If I'm Rick Adelman, I go into the locker room, I tell my guys, let's just take care of the ball and have somebody not named Michael Jordan beat us. And we give ourselves a chance. We have enough talent to play with this team. I imagine he probably preached something close to what I just said, but right at the start of the second half, the Blazers would do absolutely nothing that I just said. They were still sloppy with the ball, and the only reason why Jordan stopped scoring was because he stopped shooting. Scottie Pippen, who at this point has been doing a little bit of everything, nearly having a triple-double by the beginning of the third quarter, would lead the charge in the second half as the Bulls would begin the quarter on a 13-2 run. The score would get as bad as 83-55 in the third quarter, and the Bulls at this point was running away with the game. Once Jordan got hot, the Blazers absolutely folded and lost their composure. Instead of moving the ball and trying to get good shots, they began to move too fast, making mistakes which the Bulls turned into points. The Bulls will also finish the game with 16 offensive rebounds and 38 team assists. This game got so out of hand that I didn't even bother to finish watching it once it got over 30 points. Needless to say, the Bulls would take game 1 of this series. After Game 1, the city of Chicago was buzzing. They just witnessed one of the greatest performances in NBA history from one single player. The team they did it against, however, was just embarrassed in front of the entire world. And though the entire game wasn't a blowout, they knew they could play better and that the Bulls were not that much better than their team. In Game 2, the Blazers would come out playing very aggressive. They would attack the paint and capitalize on the Bulls' mistakes. The Bulls were able to cut the lead down to 1 just 3 minutes into the second quarter, with Jordan scoring on back-to-back possessions when he first came back into the game. Even though the Bulls would cut into the lead, the Blazers would respond later on, pushing their lead back up to 6, thanks in part to the Bulls continuing their sloppy ball control. The Blazers somehow will hold on to this lead in the first half, despite their superstar not playing his best basketball. Clyde in the first half finished just 4 for 11 from the field. Even though he had some ugly looking shots, his attacking mindset along with the surprising 7 first half assists helped contribute to the Blazers' 9-point lead at the half. It wasn't the main reason why they had the lead though. The main reason they had the lead was thanks to their defense on MJ. During halftime, Magic was interviewed and asked his opinion on the game, and he tells the audience an interesting stat.
Michael had 21 shots in the first half of the first game, and in this half of this game, he's only gotten 12 shots. So they really gotten his shot attempts down, and I think they've been aggressive. That's been the main thing for them.
If you look at some of the possessions they guarded Jordan, Portland began to send doubles whenever Jordan would be in the mid-post area. They also were causing the Bulls to turn over the ball by getting their hands on a lot of their passes. 4 minutes into the third quarter, Clyde would pick up his 4th foul of the game. Rick Adelman would opt to leave him in the game despite holding a 9-point lead. Jordan would begin to get loose after being held in check for most of the first half. He scored 9 points, and we aren't even halfway into the third quarter yet. The Bulls would eventually take the lead late into the third following a turnaround and 1 from Jordan. The Bulls finally found their groove offensively. They would finish the quarter out on a 13-0 run, taking a 7-point lead into the fourth. The Bulls would maintain the lead they built in the beginning of the fourth. The Blazers, meanwhile, are really struggling by this point in the game. They haven't scored a field goal in 8 minutes. The Bulls have been playing suffocating defense with open shots coming few and far between. To make matters worse, Clyde picked up his 5th foul of the game 4 minutes into the fourth quarter. Even though it wasn't the ideal position for Portland to be in, a Terry Porter 3-pointer would cut the Bulls' lead to only 6. Midway through the fourth though, the thing that the Blazers absolutely did not want to happen would unfortunately happen. Clyde would foul out of the game while trying to recover a turnover caused by Scottie Pippen. He would finish the game with 26 points, and at this point, it looked like Portland was about to go home down 0-2. But let's just say, I finished watching this game. Terry Porter would convert on a turnaround jumper to cut the Bulls' lead down to only 5 with less than 3 minutes left to play in the game. Jordan would miss a free throw on the Bulls' next possession, while Terry Porter would make both of his free throws on the Blazers' next possession, making the lead only 4. Danny Ainge would then penetrate into the lane, converting on the layup, cutting the Bulls' lead down to just 2. Paxson would miss a shot on the Bulls' next possession, giving Portland a chance to tie the game. Ainge would find a cutting Kersey down the lane, and he would finish at the rim, tying the game at 95 with 45 seconds left in the game. On the Bulls' next possession, Jordan would convert on a gorgeous layup to take a 2-point lead. Terry Porter would then find Kevin Duckworth on Portland's next possession, who would then convert on his unique shot from barely outside of the paint to tie the game up again at 97. Jordan had a chance to end the game at regulation with a great look from the mid-range, but it would clank off the rim, forcing overtime. Nobody expected Portland to be in this position. After their star player fouled out, they finished the fourth quarter outscoring the Bulls by 10 points to force overtime. In the overtime period, Portland would take a 3-point lead after Duckworth converted on another layup. The next possession down, Kersey would then foul out of the game, sending Scott Williams to the line where he would convert on 1 of 2 free throws, cutting the lead down to 2 with a little over 2 minutes left in the game. Danny Ainge would then make a beautiful cut down the lane, converting on the layup, pushing the lead to 4. This play would have controversy behind it, with Buck Williams stepping out of bounds prior to saving the ball. The refs, however, would miss this call. Jordan would then be sent to the line, but he would only convert a 1 of 2 free throws, making the Portland lead 3. Terry Porter then on the next possession would hit a crippling 3-pointer, pushing the lead to 6 with a minute and a half left to play. Paxson would miss on his next 3-point attempt, allowing Danny Ainge to get out in transition by himself, pushing the shocking lead to 8. Since Drexler fouled out of the game, Portland by this point has surprisingly outscored the Bulls 28-10. After a couple desperate Bulls possessions, the game would essentially be finished, and we head back to Portland with the series at 1-1. This is a game that the Bulls absolutely let get away from them. What happened to the Bulls in Game 2 down the stretch? They simply didn't execute. It wasn't necessarily one person, it was the entire team. Even Jordan missed multiple free throws down the stretch when the team desperately needed them. The Bulls would have little to no time to dwell on this loss. Game 2, which was on June the 5th, went into overtime, meaning the game probably ended around midnight. So that means the game ended on the morning of June 6th. Game 3 is on June 7th. And guess where it is? It's in Portland. Meaning, the teams had to immediately fly from Chicago to Portland and play Game 3 the very next day. Needless to say, if you were going to skip a game to watch in this series, I would probably say this is the one. The basketball being played in this game wasn't the best, obviously with the players being visibly exhausted. Early in the Game 3, the Blazers would miss 3 free throws. Despite their struggles from the line, the Blazers would continue forcing Bulls turnovers, turning them into easy buckets. After a couple careless turnovers, the Bulls would do a much better job taking care of the ball, eventually taking a 6-point lead towards the end of the first quarter, going on an 11-2 run. The Bulls would finish the quarter shooting 64% from the field, helping them build an 8-point lead. That Bulls lead would continue to grow as Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant would help the Bulls start the second quarter, scoring 8 unanswered points. The Blazers would struggle to generate points starting the quarter 2 for 15 from the field. Despite the slow start, Portland would begin to generate more offense towards the end of the quarter, bringing the once 15-point Bulls lead down to 9 before halftime. Clyde Drexler would end the quarter with 16 points, being the only Blazer to finish the first half in double digits. While watching the game early in the third quarter, the Bulls looked to have been a little vulnerable. The Blazers would go on a 14-4 run to start the quarter, cutting even more into the Bulls' lead with it now being only 5. Despite the Bulls building back the lead, the teams were so fatigued at this point, there were plenty of missed shots. It was actually a historically bad quarter as both teams ended up scoring an all-time finals low 31 points combined in the quarter. At the beginning of the fourth quarter, Bill Cartwright would foul out of the game, making it the first time all season the Bulls would have to finish a game without their starting big man. Even though the Bulls would lose Cartwright, they would still manage to hold the lead throughout the fourth quarter, thanks in part to them upping the intensity on the defensive side of the ball. Portland would struggle to generate any type of offense during the fourth quarter. Clyde would play a good game overall, but he disappeared down the stretch when the Blazers desperately needed someone to create some type of offense, probably due to fatigue. In the end, however, the Bulls would end up winning the game 94-84, taking back control of the series, going up 2-1 on the Blazers. At the start of Game 4, Jordan would get off to a nice start, giving the Bulls the early lead. The Bulls would score the first 10 points of the game before Portland even scored their first bucket. The key to the Bulls' success early against Portland was the fact that they were just taking better shots. Magic said it perfectly during the broadcast.
The difference between the two teams is Chicago will make the extra pass. Here it is a steal, good team defense. Drexler's going to break off, but he has no lane here. Watch the defense by Chicago, give him really no lane. He has to make a tough shot. But really the difference between the two teams is the 4 times that Chicago has come down, they made the extra pass to get the basket. Portland had a chance to make 2 passes. Duckworth should have passed that ball back to Drexler. He could have went in for a dunk. He took the jump shot, missed. Back on the other end for an easy shot for Michael. And that's the difference between the two teams. They're making an extra pass.
This would result in the Bulls going up as much as 13 points in the first quarter. The Blazers would make up some ground later on in the quarter, getting easy looks at the basket. Despite making up some ground, the Bulls would still hold an 8-point lead to finish the first. At the start of the second, the Blazers would cut the Bulls' lead all the way down to 4 after a huge Danny Ainge 3-point shot. After cutting the lead down to 4, the Blazers would push the lead right back up to 8 after a bucket from B.J. Armstrong and free throws from Jordan. The Bulls and Blazers would continue to trade buckets back and forth, as this would be a much more entertaining basketball game to watch than Game 3. Watching the second quarter of Game 4, you really start to realize how good these two teams really are. Before I took the time to sit down and watch this entire series, I was made to think by just being a basketball head and hearing different basketball conversations that the narrative of the 92 finals was that Jordan won his second title after Game 1, hitting those 6 threes in the first half, and that Portland was not adequate competition. But this Portland team really had a lot of talent, and they very well could have beaten the Bulls. The Blazers shot over 60% from the field in the second quarter, while the Bulls would shoot over 50% themselves. Despite the Bulls playing good in the second, their lead would only be 3 points heading into halftime. Jordan would finish the first half with 19 points, while Drexler would finish with 15. The Bulls would start the third quarter scoring 5 straight points, quickly pushing their lead back to 8. The Blazers and the Bulls would continue to trade buckets, with the lead fluctuating between 4 points and 8 points throughout the quarter. A big thing that happened midway through the third, however, was Scottie Pippen picking up his 4th foul. Pippen had been playing a great game so far, so Phil didn't necessarily want to take him out of the game, but he had to do it. He didn't want Scottie to pick up his 5th foul before the 4th quarter. It looked like Phil made the correct decision early, with Jordan seeming to be able to keep control of the lead all by himself. Jordan would end the third quarter with 28 points, helping the Bulls keep control of the game with a 3-point lead. Drexler would only score 2 points this entire period, but he still impacted the game with 7 more assists heading into the final period. To start the 4th period, Jordan and the Bulls would again start the quarter strong, scoring 4 quick points, forcing the Blazers to call a timeout, with them trailing 73-66. Coming out of the timeout though, Phil Jackson tried to sneak Jordan a break, summing him out of the game. Jordan played all but 2 minutes so far this game. He wasn't out of the game for long, as the Bulls couldn't afford it. Portland is giving Chicago everything they can handle. Every time it seemed like the Bulls are going to pull away, Portland somehow responds. Portland is responding despite Drexler having a poor second half, only scoring 2 points so far midway through the 4th quarter. Portland would cut the lead down to 1 after Cliff Robinson hit 1 of 2 free throws. Jordan would then turn over the ball on the Bulls' next possession. Drexler would convert on a layup after Jordan's turnover to give Portland their first lead of the ball game. That lead would be stretched to 3 on Portland's next possession. John Paxson would then tie the game at 95, hitting a huge 3-point basket the very next play. After Cliff Robinson split another pair of free throws, the Blazers would take a 1-point lead with around 2 minutes left to play in the game. Terry Porter would then be fouled and hit 2 more free throws, giving Portland a 3-point lead. Jordan would then miss on the step-through jumper during the Bulls' next possession, giving Portland the ball and a 3-point lead with a minute 35 remaining. They would end up fouling Cliff Robinson again, with him converting on 1 or 2 free throws again, giving Portland now a 4-point lead. Pippen would be sent to the line on the Bulls' next possession. He would split the free throws, making it a 5-point game. The Bulls would fight the best they could to get back into the game, but Portland wouldn't be denied. Portland had now tied the series at 2-2, making this NBA Finals now a best-of-3. This was a brand new series now. Game 1 was a legendary performance from Jordan, but the Blazers have responded. It's now Game 5 with the series 2-2. The team that plays the best in the next couple games is gonna win the NBA championship. This is the second time this series that the Bulls have blew a 4th quarter lead. This was very uncharacteristic from the Bulls, especially since they had an all-time closer in MJ. At the start of Game 5, the Bulls would come out on fire, trying to make up for Game 4 getting away from them, starting out the game on a 10-2 run. 8 of the first 10 points of the Bulls would be off of turnovers. The Blazers would eventually settle down, bringing the lead all the way back down to 5. However, the Bulls would continue to score off Blazers' mistakes throughout the entire quarter. Both Jordan and Pippen would provide the majority of the offense for the Bulls in the first quarter, as they both attempted to set the tone early. When the Blazers weren't turning over the ball, Drexler and friends weren't playing that bad of basketball. They shot 53% from the field for the quarter. Despite the good field goal percentage, turnovers killed the Blazers, as the Bulls would score nearly 40 points in the opening quarter, holding a 13-point lead. Jordan finished the quarter with 12 points, while Pippen finished with 13 points, not missing one shot the entire quarter. To start the second, Phil would leave both Pippen and Jordan on the floor. It was very apparent that the Bulls were not looking to play around with this Blazer team anymore. The lead for the Bulls would get as big as 19. Portland would be able to fight back, with Kersey and Drexler being able to score a little bit on the smothering Bulls D. Jordan would immediately respond coming out of the timeout, but after hitting the jumper coming back down the court, Jordan was obviously limping, having stepped on the cameraman's leg as he planned to jog back down the court. Chicago would call a timeout on the next possession to try and get Jordan some help on his ankle. He would have to come off the floor, as the Bulls fans at this time were probably holding their breath, praying that the sprain wasn't too severe. He would only sit out a couple of minutes before coming back into the game. The Bulls would maintain the lead they built into the first, with the lead never going under double digits. The Blazers would attempt to get back into the ball game, but it seemed like every time the Blazers would build momentum, the Bulls would respond. A huge decision made by Rick Adelman was Drexler committing his third foul in the second quarter. Adelman opted to leave him in the game, and unfortunately for the Blazers, with just over 2 minutes remaining in the half, Drexler would commit his fourth foul. Despite the foul trouble, Drexler would finish the half with 20 points, as the Blazers were able to cut a little bit into the Bulls' lead. Jordan, however, would finish with 27 first half points, and the Bulls would go into halftime with the 12-point lead. At the start of the third quarter, the Bulls' lead would eventually get as high as 20. The Blazers, however, would begin to fight back, trying desperately to get back into the game. The Bulls, however, would have another answer for the Blazers, keeping a comfortable lead for them the majority of the third quarter. Jordan would end the third quarter with 39 points, while Pippen would put together a nice three quarters himself, putting up 21, 10, and 8. And the Bulls will hold a 16-point lead. Drexler was doing everything he could to keep up with Jordan, putting up a respectable 25 points by the end of the third quarter. At the start of the fourth, both Jordan and Drexler would commit their fifth personal foul. Phil opted to take MJ out of the game, while Adelman decided to leave Drexler in the game due to them being down by so much. The lead had not been cut down to single digits ever since the Bulls first went up by that much. This really has been a dominant Bulls performance. They 100% responded from the Game 4 mishap. Horace Grant, another important player for the Bulls, would also commit his fifth foul, but Phil decided to leave him in the game. Despite Jordan sitting for a significant period of time in the fourth quarter, the Blazers still failed to make up any ground, as the Bulls were still able to maintain a solid margin. The Blazers attempted to make a run, with them cutting the lead all the way down to 12, forcing the Bulls to call a timeout. They would eventually cut the lead down to single digits for the first time with a little over 3 minutes remaining. Unfortunately, the Blazers' Drexler would foul out of the game with 2:35 left. He would finish with 30 and 10. The lead was back to double digits anyway. The late spurt by the Blazers was a little too late this time. The Bulls would go up 3-2 in the series, as Jordan would finish with 46 points and one win away from his second straight NBA championship. Before Game 6 even started, while just watching an old broadcast, I could feel the buzz in the building. Both the Bulls and the Bulls fans wanted it to end the night. They wanted to celebrate this championship tonight on their own home court, in their own locker room, instead of on somebody else's home floor. At this point in NBA history, no team had ever came back from a 3-2 deficit by winning 2 straight road games, so the odds were stacked against the Blazers. To make matters even worse, to start the game, the Blazers would miss their first 6 shots. Despite the Blazers missing their first 6 shots, the important thing was that they didn't allow the Bulls to get off to a quick start. Both teams would struggle to generate offense as neither team would score double-digit points halfway through the quarter. Jordan would come out trying to get his teammates involved early, only scoring 2 points the entire first quarter. Jerome Kersey would end up being the player who gave the Bulls the most trouble in the first, with him scoring 11 points in the quarter. The Blazers would shoot 8 more shots than the Bulls at the end of the first and would hold a 6-point lead on Chicago. However, the Blazers would raise the lead back to 10 towards the middle of the second. Drexler so far has been a non-factor, only shooting 2 for 9 to this point for the Blazers. However, as the quarter went on, Drexler would start to make his presence known, helping the Blazers build their biggest lead of the game. Towards the end of the second though, Jordan would begin to wake up, not allowing the Bulls to fall behind by too many. The Blazers would end up taking a 6-point lead in the halftime. Jordan would finish the half with 14 points, while Drexler would finish with 11. The Blazers had the lead, yes, but we were now heading into the third, where all series long the Blazers have struggled. The Blazers in the third quarter averaged 18 points with a 33% field goal percentage, while the Bulls averaged 27 points and a 51% field goal percentage. At the start of the third, the Blazers would gain back control of the game, raising their lead back up to double digits. A critical call that occurred in the third is Drexler picking up an offensive foul while posting up Jordan, making it his 4th foul, forcing him to finish the game in foul trouble again. It might not be an issue the way the game is going. Portland had a 17-point lead with 2 minutes left in the third quarter. The Blazers would outscore the Bulls 29-20, taking a 15-point lead into the fourth quarter. To start the fourth quarter, the Bulls would immediately go on an 8-2 run to cut the lead down to 7 with Jordan on the bench. The arena at this point is deafening. The Bulls crowd wants these Bulls to end the series tonight. Phil would stick with the lineup without Jordan after the timeout, and the Bulls would continue to cut into the lead. The lead would get cut all the way down to 3 with 8 minutes left to go before Portland would call another timeout. The Bulls would end up scoring 16 points off of turnovers this quarter from the Blazers. After this timeout, Phil would put Jordan back into the game. The Portland lead will only be 1 point with around 6 minutes left to play. To make matters even worse, the Blazers only had 1 timeout left the entire game. Adelman used them all in an attempt to stop the Bulls' momentum, which hasn't worked one bit. The Bulls would then take a 2-possession lead after Jordan hits a mean turnaround jumper with a little over 1 minute remaining in the game. Coming out of the timeout, Drexler would be fouled by Jordan. He would make both free throws, making the Bulls lead only 2. On the Bulls' next possession, MJ would drive to the cup and convert on a beautiful layup, making the lead 4 points again. The Blazers would end up on the free throw line on their next possession, with Jerome Kersey making both free throws. The Blazers would be forced to send Jordan to the line in order to extend the game. He would convert on both free throws, clinching the 2nd straight title for the Chicago Bulls. At this point in time, only 4 teams in NBA history have won back-to-back NBA titles, the last being their arch rivals, the Bad Boy Pistons. When you look at the head-to-head matchup between Jordan and Drexler, it's kind of jarring how much Jordan dominated the matchup. Drexler did not play a bad series by any means. He was the clear best player on a very feisty Blazer team whose core might have been the best group to not win a championship during the 90s. Despite Drexler playing good, it was clear that Jordan was just on another level. This dude was just a different breed. Jordan has scored over 30 points 5 out of the 6 games this series. If it wasn't clear last year, it's clear now. This league belonged to MJ. That's the end of the video. Thanks for those who watched till the end. If you enjoyed, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It's your boy Said, and I'm out. Peace.